Learning how to make eggplant pie is really easy. My tomato pie recipe that I uploaded 2 years ago is starting to go viral, so it got me thinking about other versions with other vegetables. For those of you who don't know, tomato pie is an old fashioned southern recipe. It's originally from South Carolina, I think, and it consists of a pie crust with layers of slices of tomato and cheese, basil, and other spices. It is incredible. It's awesome. And like I said, I uploaded the video 2 years ago, but it's finally going viral and people are watching it and loving it. So thank you very much. And like I said, that kind of inspired me to get creative and think about other pies I can make. I made a zucchini pie. I think that's going to go up before this one. And then I thought, you know what? What about an eggplant pie? So we are going to learn how to make an eggplant pie together. Of course, you need eggplant. I bought 2 pounds worth of eggplant. So just about 1,000 grams. And I made sure to try to get small eggplants. The ones that I got were bigger than this one, but I just want to make my point, a small eggplant, because a smaller eggplant usually has fewer seeds and it's not as bitter. Eggplant sometimes can be a bit bitter, so like I said, choose a smaller eggplant and I think this recipe will work out better for you. There are also people, I haven't had time to verify this, but they say that if you look at the bottom of the eggplant, you can tell if it's male or female. If it's circular, it's male. If it's an oval, it's female. And that the male will have fewer seeds. Like I said, I have not had time to verify that, but that is what people say. Once I cut the egg, I want to go over how I cutted the eggplant. At first I started going like this, but then I realized that I was getting eggplant that was shaped like that, and it was getting harder and harder to cut the slices. So then I just went like that. I honestly think you could cut this eggplant in multiple ways, but just so you know, at first I started going like that, and then I went up and down like that. I made sure the slices were about 1/4 inch thick. You don't want them too thick. And I put them on paper towels, and then I sprinkled some salt over them. A total of a little over 1/4 teaspoon, I would say, for all of the eggplant. I let the eggplant sit for about 45 minutes. Then I transfer them to new paper towels. So this is the second paper towel. And I turned them over when I did. As you can see, the paper towel, even though it's the second one, it's wet. It's completely soaked here. A lot of moisture has come out of the eggplant. I'll probably pat them down again with a paper towel just to get a little more out. Because if you don't go through that step, number one, it's going to be more bitter. And number two, you might have eggplant soup in a pie crust shell, which you don't want. Speaking of the pie crust, I have my homemade pie crust here, 9 inches. But of course, you can use your own pie crust or store-bought. This is currently unbaked. You can't have a vegetable pie without cheese, so I'm using 1.5 blocks of low moisture part skim mozzarella, so 8 ounces and then 4 ounces. 1 block will go into the pie itself, and then the other half a block, about 112 grams, I am going to mix with 1/4 cup of sour cream, 60 grams as I measure, and then some spices, and spread that over the top. You can use mayo as well. Even if you don't like mayo, when I make the tomato pie with mayo, it doesn't really taste like mayo. It just adds an interesting bit of tang. Of course, you can't forget the spices. I'm using a total in the pie of, I believe, 1 teaspoon each of black pepper, onion powder, garlic powder, parsley, oregano, and dried basil. Here, I only have 1/4 teaspoon each of the spices because I'm going to add the spices in layers. So cheese and spices and eggplant, and then repeat. and I think the spices will be more evenly distributed if I measure them for each layer. What I'm going to do is I'm going to par bake my pie crust at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 3 minutes. Take it out, put some cheese on the bottom, put it back in for 3 minutes. I'll explain why up next. The pie shell was in the oven for 3 minutes. Then I took it out and I added some cheese. I would say I added about a third of the block. Now it's going to go back in for 3 more minutes to finish cooking the crust, at least par baking it, and to melt the cheese. This way, the cheese and the crust will form a floor, shall we say, at the bottom of the pie, so that if the eggplant is really watery, it won't soak everything on the bottom. The cheese is now melted in the bottom of my eggplant pie. Before I add in the eggplant, I'm going to sprinkle in the first layer of spices. So like I said, a 1/4 teaspoon each of black pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, dried basil, oregano, and parsley. Want everything to be nice and flavorful. And now for the eggplant itself. I am going to, I did take a paper towel and just patted both sides of all the eggplant a few minutes ago. So I think it's going to be good. Hopefully that helps to keep it a little less runny than the zucchini pie. I'm going to take my eggplant slices, I'm going to lay them in like this. Just like with the tomato pie and the zucchini pie, I am going to put them in on an angle, like so, going back and forth. Some I'm going to take from here, some I'm going to take from here. And then in the middle, I'm going to put either the smaller pieces or pieces that are half of a slice. I realized that I was probably going to have a lot of leftover eggplant after making the pie, so I went back and I put in a few more slices into the first layer. What I'm going to do now is I have some more spices. I'm going to sprinkle some of the spices onto this bottom layer of eggplant, about half. And then I'm going to add more cheese. And then I'm going to add the spices to the cheese as well. Here, if there are any holes, I'm going to try to plug up the holes, shall we say, against the crust with some cheese. I'm going to add some more cheese, but just to show you. Once the cheese is in, I'm going to add more spices. My cheese and spices are in. I'm just smoothing them out a bit. Like I said, filling in the holes around the edge where needed. I added the spices, and now the second layer of eggplant. I have a feeling that this is going to be fantastic. I just finished putting in the final layer of eggplant in my eggplant pie. I don't think it's quite as packed as the bottom layer, but I'm trying to avoid the parts of the eggplant that are really seedy. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to add the last spices. I have another 1/4 teaspoon each of everything. Half of that I put into the cheese with the sour cream, and the other half of that I'm going to sprinkle on top of the pie. Well, I am going to use 3/4 of a teaspoon each of the spices, not a full teaspoon. I honestly don't think I'm going to need it. So here, with the topping, if you just wanted to do cheese, you could, but like I said, having something tangy really does add something to the pie, I think. This will all melt together and the sour cream or mayo will help it spread out. It's going to be amazing. I am going to put it down on the top in globs, shall we say. And then I'm going to use my spoon to spread it out over the top, like this. If you put it down all in one place, it's going to be really hard to spread out because the pie, the top of this eggplant pie, is not even. The cheese and sour cream topping is now on my eggplant pie. Now I'm going to put it into the oven, uncovered at 350 Fahrenheit for, I'm guessing, 50 minutes, but I'll let you know. My eggplant pie just came out of the oven. It was in at 350 Fahrenheit, uncovered for 50 minutes. 50. As you can see, my eggplant pie turned out beautifully. The eggplant slices making a beautiful pattern when viewed from above. The cheese was perfectly golden brown, as was the crust. So this pie was definitely aesthetically pleasing. And when I tried it, I found out for sure that this eggplant pie tasted just as good as it looked. I know that I said that my zucchini pie was really good, but honestly, I think that this eggplant pie was even better. In fact, this was probably one of the best things that I have eaten so far this year. Although I knew that it was going to be good, in all honesty, this eggplant pie surpassed my expectations. It was truly spectacular. When I removed the first slice, I saw that my idea to pat down the slices of eggplant one more time before putting them into the pie paid off. This pie wasn't watery at all, so there was no extra moisture to dilute the flavor. Although I wouldn't say that my zucchini pie was watery or soggy, this eggplant pie was definitely an improvement. It turned out absolutely perfectly in terms of the amount of moisture. The combination of cheese and spices was perfect as well. The flavor combination not only enhancing the mild eggplant flavor, but also standing out on its own right. Although I think that you could definitely use other cheeses like Colby Jack, cheddar, maybe even Monterey Jack again, I was definitely pleased with how the low moisture part skim turned out. Also, since the eggplant slices did not form a perfectly compact filling, the slices that were near the top roasted a bit more than those that were towards the bottom, resulting in a nice texture contrast. Like I said, once the pie was cut, I could see that it wasn't runny at all, so it was perfect. I liked this so much that I actually tried making a casserole with this same method, salting the eggplant slices, then layering them with cheese and spices, but without the pie crust. Although it was good, I definitely felt like it was missing something. I think the butteriness of the pie crust was the perfect background for this. Another thing that I think people might want to try in the future is an eggplant and tomato pie combo, treating the tomato slices just like how you treat the eggplant slices, salting them to draw out the water and then patting them down before putting them into the pie. Although I taught myself how to make eggplant pie as I went along, I have to say, this was a phenomenal success. I think that this recipe is a good example of what being creative in the kitchen can lead to. You can be inspired by a recipe that you saw on my channel or you saw on a website or maybe even in a magazine, and you want to add your own personal spin or you want to do something totally and completely different. Although it might turn out really well the first time, there's probably at least one way in which you can improve upon it for next time. So by the second or third try, it's absolutely perfect. So if you love eggplant and cheese and you're looking for a new recipe, definitely give this one a try. As always, thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.